What's up, YouTube? This is Guy, and today we're checking out, well, this is a first for me, on loan from a generous viewer. It's the Seiko SRP785K1. And why is this a first for me? Because this is a Seiko 5 watch, as you can see by looking at the dial there, Seiko 5 Sports, with a hand winding and hacking movement. In particular, we're talking about the 4R36 movement. I'm not saying that there aren't other Seiko 5 watches out there with hand winding and hacking, but this is the first one that I've ever seen, that I've ever been aware of. So, what can I tell you about this SRP785K1? This is called the Mount Fuji World Heritage Limited Edition, and the story goes that in 2013, some organization named Mount Fuji, or marked Mount Fuji, a World Heritage Site. Whatever that means, honestly, I don't know. It's like a landmark, I guess, something like that. And Seiko decided, being a Japanese company, to honor this distinction with some limited edition watches in the Seiko 5 line, and this SRP 785K1 is one example of those watches. Now, other than the fact that this has the 4R series of movement and features hand winding and hacking, which is unique for a Seiko 5, another really interesting feature, and I'm going to look at the dial here, if you check it out, it almost reminds me of the Seiko Cocktail Time dial. It's not exactly like a radiant sunburst, but it's whacked up into all of these little triangles, and if we get really close in there, you can see there's all of this, I don't know, a texture to all of those triangular segments of the dial. We'll look at the dial closer. I'll go over the basic specifications first, like I normally do. The diameter of the case on this watch is 44 millimeters with a thickness of 13 millimeters. We have a lug width of 22 millimeters and an overall wingspan from the top of the lugs to the bottom of the lugs at 51 millimeters roughly. This has a stainless steel case with drilled lug holes, which is a nice feature. Of course, the unidirectional elapsed time bezel, 100-meter water resist. Unfortunately, the crown is not a screw-down crown, however. Standard other Seiko features, Hardlex crystal, Seiko Lume Bright Lume, day and date complication at the 3 o'clock position, and this blue rubber, or maybe it's a urethane strap, which is pretty nice in its own right. If we want to dive in here and talk about some of the features in more specifics, first the case. It is a pretty heavy watch in the hand, and I feel like based on the coloration of this case and the weight of it, I would almost guess it's titanium, but the specs online that I found for it say that it is a stainless steel. And if we get really close to the case here, it has this very beautiful, very flat, matte finished. It's certainly not brushed. Maybe it's bead blasted. I don't exactly know. It's not a standard stainless steel coloration to my eyes, and this finishing is just super silky smooth and matte. It's quite nice. Now, the proportions or the dimensions of the lugs on the case is interesting. It kind of reminds me of the newer Samurai cases that came out recently, but this watch is, of course, again from 2013. It's not exactly like the Samurai, but it has these kind of angular, faceted cuts in the lugs. The side of the case is more traditionally rounded, as you can see on both sides. But yeah, there's something about the lugs here that is very distinctly Japanese in design and Seiko-like, you know what I mean? The crown itself, no signed signature decorations, no crown guards on the side of the case, nothing like that. It's very simple, but it's super nice. The back of the case has a display case back, which is obviously not super common with dive watches, and you can see that 4R36 movement, 24 jewels inscribed on the rotor. But the real thing to note is this ring here, Mount Fuji as a World Heritage Limited Edition blue ring. Just a nice little decoration again to commemorate that event. And I'm not Japanese. I don't have any sort of strong opinions or any sort of heritage for that culture, but I do still think that it's cool that, you know, their Mount Fuji was kind of made into a landmark, I guess. And they're celebrating that. I can respect that. And this watch does that. You know, the rest of the notations on the back of the case here, you know, Seiko logo, standard markings, water resistant 10 bar stainless steel, 4R36. Pretty much, you know, par for the course. Now, we did say, you know, the crown is not screw down. It's just a hand winding crown. So you can give it some spins, and the action of hand winding it is quite good. Of course, if you pull the crown out to the first position, you can set the day and date, and I just trimmed my fingernails so I can't really get under there. Pull it out to the second position, and you can see that the movement does indeed stop running. It hacks, and the second hand is halted there. Push it back in to get it running again. You know, very straightforward. The bezel, I don't know what the material is that this bezel is made out of. It's a nice blue finish, and you can see blue is the overall theme here. You got the blue on the strap, you got on the back that blue ring, and of course this blue bezel. It's maybe it's solid aluminum. It doesn't have an insert. It's like everything is engraved. The bezel itself is engraved to leave the numbers on the 25 through 55 area standing up. And then on the 60 through 20 area, it's engraved down and then filled with paint. All of these graduated markers are colored in white for the first 20 minutes. The action on the bezel is pretty good. It's not outstanding. I don't think it's 120 click. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it seems to just be 60 click unidirectional bezel, but it's solid. There's not a ton of play, and you know, overall it's attractive. So pretty. I mean, it's a Seiko 5. You know, they tend to be more affordable watches. You don't get every single feature like 120 click unidirectional bezel. That might be something you wouldn't find on a Seiko 5. Maybe in some cases, but nevertheless, I have no complaints with this bezel. I'll go ahead and set that back up to the 12 o'clock position. Moving in, you know, we have their standard Seiko hard Lex crystal covering the dial. And again, the dial is very, very attractive. We'll talk about that again briefly, and I'll give you another close look. The indices, they're just printed on. They're not applied markers. The only thing that's really applied is the Seiko 5 logo, the Seiko logo, and the 5 shield. Underneath that, sports is printed, limited edition automatic 100 meters on the bottom. All of the indices, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, and the kind of hash marks over at the 3, 6, and 9, and then this triangle marker at the top. Again, it's all just printed. There's a printed outline, black rectangular outline around the day and date window at the 3 o'clock position. It looks good. It's very legible. The day and date window, of course, is a white dial with white, black text, rather. We do have Lume. We have Lume on the hands, and then on the outer chapter ring, all of these little square pips, those are lumed as well. I'll roll in some video of the Lume if I remember, and if I forget, forgive me. Sometimes in post-production, I forget to mix in those Lume shots. It's Lume Bright, it's Seiko's, it's good. The only downside is that you know, these pips are small. It would be nice if the indices, the numerals, were loomed, but they're not. It's just those little pips on the outside, and then the hour and minute hands, and then the tip of the second hands. I will say that I'm not a fan of the 5 emblem on the counterbalance side of the second hand. I wish that wasn't there. It's a minor aesthetic thing, but for me, I just don't really dig that. The rest of it, though, it's very attractive. The handset is, if we get in really close here, it's not a typical stainless steel handset. You can see they're kind of blacked out, and then the second hand is stainless steel with the red tip and then the red 5, which it accents nicely with that sports printing and the limited edition printing. I like that. Moving right along, the other real thing to discuss is this strap, and the strap is good. We have a decent matte finished buckle, and the matte finishing matches the case's finishing pretty well. Rubber free floating keeper. On the underside, you have this channel. I don't know, not engraved in, like molded in, I guess. That's going to help with letting air get under there, so your wrist can breathe, and so sweat doesn't just accumulate. The little ribbed area here, probably to aid in flexibility right around the bend of the top of your wrist. And then on the other side, the more or less same thing, that same channel. You have the holes for the buckle, and terminates down into sort of chiseled off tongue. It's a nice strap. I like it. It seems to be comfortable. Seems to be really well made. Overall, I would say, you know, one of the few Seiko 5s where I would just keep the strap that it came on. It's good. It's nice. It's reminiscent of a Casio strap. Casio G-Shocks, you know, the kind of like low to mid-tier G-Shocks, if you're familiar with those. Resin straps, I guess those are called. This is like a rubber or urethane, but regardless, that same sort of feel to me, you know, very, very comfortable, good quality, and yeah, no complaints there. I'll go ahead and throw it on my wrist for you guys so you can kind of see how it wears on the wrist. I'm not a huge fan of doing wrist shots and videos because you're zoomed in so close, and I don't really think that it's super representative of anything. But I know every time I don't do one, people say you didn't do a wrist shot. So I'll go ahead, put it on my wrist, show it to you guys, and then we'll wrap this review. Alright guys, there's the SRP785K1 on my roughly 6 3/4 to 7 inch wrist. If I was going to give you a negative about the strap, it is just a hair long. You can see at the top here, there's a little tail, a little nubby hanging out. I don't like when straps do that, but I do like everything else about this strap so much that I would probably just live with it. It's not a big deal. It fits me, pretty well. The overall size, dimensions, proportions of the case, not a problem. 44 millimeters is getting pretty much to the end of the spectrum of what I'm comfortable wearing. I don't really like going over 44, and if I had my way, I would probably never go over 42, but it's not bad. You know, it fits me just fine. You can see that the lugs here don't really hang over my wrists. They're just right about from extremity to extremity, right about at the ends of what my wrist could tolerate. But yeah, overall, really nice looking watch. Super happy to have it on loan to do a quick review. I hope you guys liked the video. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below as always. And hopefully I'll be back within another few days with another watch review. Thanks a lot. Bye.